There are things like minimum account balance fees, late payment fees, a whole set of fees that basically erode your savings and make it, wire transfer fees. I mean, all of these things, remittance fees, that make it expensive to interact with the traditional banking system if you don't maintain a large relationship with an institution. Along comes crypto, and crypto is not relying on any institutional intermediary for any of that.
And of course, I'm not proud of my country for allowing this crap, what I call the crypto shit, it's worthless, it's no good, it's crazy.
And your wallet is not charging you a fee for the privilege of holding your money the way that a bank does, right? Because a wallet's just a piece of software that sits on your phone. And so eliminating things like minimum balance fees and transaction fees and late payment fees, that alone is transformational. And then you start talking about particular communities that need to do things like, for example, send money abroad, as immigrant communities often do.
I think the people that oppose my position are idiots.
There would be a person who was the receptionist. That person was generally in his or her 50s. He would say, who are you and who are you here to see? So I would say, well, I'm Brian Brooks. I'm from Coinbase. And they would say, can you spell that?
It'll do nothing but harm. It's antisocial to allow it.
And the line that I always give, Stephanie, is that networks always win. And all crypto is a set of decentralized networks that don't rely on powerful rent-seeking intermediaries. That's the value proposition.
The guy who made the correct decision on this is the Chinese leader.
And to be super clear and to provide the trigger warning for the audience here, I am firmly on the camp of stablecoins, and I'll tell you why.
The Chinese leader took one look at crypto shit and he says, not in my China.
In the countries that have already built out a central bank digital currency, and the most important country of those is China, there is a clearly stated purpose in why it's important that the central bank own the issuance of these payment instruments. And that is, as they say in China, this is among other things, what the vice chair of the People's Bank of China has said in a number of speeches, is they would like to reduce their reliance on the dollar. And a way they can do that is to create a CBDC and then require inbound investors to make investments in the local CBDC versus in dollars. And so the idea in China was, well, we're going to force people into this currency by saying you can't invest in our companies unless that's the currency they use, first of all. Second of all, and this starts to get really scary, there is this belief by the government that they would like to be able to approve and disapprove individual transactions. So in a world of CBDC, imagine where that decision could be made on any given day for any given person about any given thing. And think about what that could be. So like for me, I grew up in a small town in southern Colorado where when young boys were growing up, their dads would buy them a hunting rifle or a shotgun and take them out into the woods to go hunting. I'm pretty sure that in certain political regimes in this country, that's not going to be allowed because that regime knows that firearms are bad or tobacco is bad or whatever cause it is you believe in can be controversial. So for me, what's really, really critical is that the monetary system be viewpoint agnostic, that once you've earned your money, you can spend it the way that you want to spend it, and you will not be subject to somebody telling you otherwise. That's the debate between stable coins, which are transacting on public blockchains, are not controlled by the government, and your money is your money, versus CBDCs, where yes, it's an account at the central bank that represents money you've earned, but the central bank can decide when it's going to allow you to use it and on what. To me, that's a little bit of a dystopian scenario, and one that's actually playing out right now. So it's no longer sort of a scaremongering comment. It's very real for many people.
And boom, there isn't any crypto shit in China. He's right and we're wrong.
Do you believe that the unbanked will be banked through cryptocurrency?
Well, the joke answer would be not if the banks have anything to say about it. But the better answer would be this. So let's just unpack this for a moment. So first of all, let's start with some simple data, which shows that in terms of the investment community in crypto, a larger percentage of Black people hold crypto than white people in the United States. Now,
no way.
Now, why would that be? It's something like 36% of Black people and something like 22% of white people. Rough numbers, these change every day, obviously. But it's a non-trivial difference. Why would that be? Well, one explanation for it is that at the time that a lot of stock market wealth was generated in this country, which was basically between the 1950s and the 1980s, in that era, Blacks, and to a slightly lesser extent Hispanics and Asians, were shut out of that market because they didn't have risk capital to invest in IPOs, or they didn't have the connections to invest in IPOs, or they were shut out because of accredited investor rules, things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crypto comes along, and we're in the very, very early stages of crypto. Early enough that if you bought, I mean, as you know, if you bought Bitcoin 2 years ago, if you put $100 in Bitcoin 2 years ago, that $100 is now closer to $10,000. So there are enormous growth because it's early stage. Sort of like, if you'd bought Apple stock in 1978 and just bought $100 worth of it, you'd be a millionaire today.
Mm-hmm.
Those opportunities in the stock market are largely fully valued. And so, minorities largely miss that window, but they haven't missed crypto. They're here early enough, and they're not, this is the really important point, they're not boxed out by accredited investor rules, which basically allow wealth creation only by people who are already rich. So those rules don't apply to non-securities products like crypto tokens. And so that's one of the dimensions, is just the investment value alone is something they are now able to take advantage of. There are a lot more people who don't have access to banks than people who don't have access to cell phones. And we learned this in the 90s, right? So there was a famous thing that happened in the 90s, which is, for the first time in history, a bank won the Nobel Prize. I don't know if you remember this, but it was a bank called the Grameen Bank. And the Grameen Bank won the Nobel Prize for its project of making microloans to women in Bangladesh to buy cell phones, right? So what you see is cell phones turn out to be really key to entrepreneurialism in the developing world. And what you find now is, and I'll give you a couple of examples, cell phones, particularly Android phones, are virtually ubiquitous. There's virtually nowhere you can go in the world. You could go to Chad and Malawi, the poorest countries on earth, and Android phone penetration is still north of 80%. So basically, pretty much everybody has a cell phone, including huge numbers of people who don't have bank accounts. That then is the beauty of crypto, which is you don't need a bank, you just need a phone. And virtually everybody does have a phone at the end of the day. And so it's the ubiquity of that technology that makes crypto so compelling. What's interesting about that is if you look at places where crypto is really widely adopted, take, for example, people in Venezuela, right, where their currency has been entirely ruined by, the socialist sort of central bank policy in that country. Or look at Ukrainian refugees more recently fleeing, sort of the Russian invasion. Those are places where huge microeconomies of Bitcoin and Ether have sprung up, because what they have is they have their phones, their local currency is now valueless, but people are willing to transact with them in this global currency that can't be destroyed by any government. So refugee communities, war communities, dictatorships, these are places where crypto is not a nice to have, it's really a must have, and it's achieved very wide adoption in those places.
Well, and there is no good argument on the other side. I can't supply it.